All right, we're back. We're going to talk about the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I was afraid going in, considering they were 3-0, much like last year, that there would be this, not so much arrogance, because that wasn't the case, but just the mistakes would creep in and they would lose to Hamilton, which is, pretty decent offensively, but terrible defensively. That wasn't the case. It was quite the opposite. You had a defense that from 0 to 60 did not let up. You had a offense from 0 to 60 that had its bumps, but when it got going, especially with Rob Bagg, they were phenomenal. 300 and some yards, 340 some yards throwing by Durant, and 4 touchdowns. No interceptions. His 12 touchdowns and no interceptions are the best in the league.
I think that's the key thing right there, right where you're saying there's a maturity. I think with the offensive coordinators come in, the balance, and I think they're in sync. All I could think of is Carly Agro when we were kicking the snot out of Hamilton. I said, sorry, Carly, but that was fun to watch. But yeah, and to get into, sorry I interrupt you, but to get into the 3-0 start last year versus this year's, I think the biggest difference is the veteran leadership they've brought in over the offseason. They brought in some key character guys, leaders in the dressing room, that they're not going to let this happen. And they're playing 60 minutes, and they are the class. As much as all our Eskimo fans here in town, the Riders are the class of the league right now, and hopefully that continues.
And will that continue? Actually, that's the next question to go on. You pretty much summed it up well about Darian Durant, but you look at that defense. You had Corey Chamberlain, their head coach, say, you know what, not necessarily calling him out, but challenging his players, saying, you've given up too many points late in the game. In that fourth quarter. Not saying allowing teams in, but you kind of put your foot off the pedal just a little bit. Go full throttle. They shut out the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an accomplishment, but the fact you could shut out any team in the CFL, that's quite impressive. Has this defense made you say, you know what, they have something special, and this could be one of the dominant defenses that you'd find in a single season in CFL history, perhaps?
Well, I think more than anything, they have a rush ends. They have guys that can pressure the quarterback.
Ray Williams has been fantastic.
And juggling around, moving guys from safety to defensive back, moving Butler around, moving Williams around. And then Foley has been pretty solid too, and then Johnny Chick is just a motor that doesn't stop.
Even though he doesn't have the sacks, the fact that he creates
pressuring.
that rush.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what leads
the comment during the game was, they thought it was the first game of the series rather than, the fourth quarter with a 30-some point lead. He was still hammering down on the quarterback. And your offense, that's a pretty strong balance. Sheets with this greatest start ever, and then the receiving core is all healthy, and Durant's playing smart football, so that's a good combination.
I think the only thing on offense we're kind of waiting for something to happen is Jock Sanders. He's been good at specialty teams offensively. He's had his moments, but we haven't seen that 1-2 punch like we did the previous season.
Well, we'll see what happens there. But you know what? Let's move on to the Montreal Alouettes. Now, this is a team that going into the season, you would think perhaps they would be the top of the East Division. That clearly hasn't been the case, albeit they're 1-3. They're still only one game behind the 2-2 Toronto Argonauts, who are at first. The East is weak, let's be honest. But surprisingly, they are at 1-3. It seems like there's a disarray between the head coach and Anthony Calvillo. But is it more so that, especially the game against Calgary when they were up, 24-0, ended up losing that game? Now, as demoralizing as that loss is, are we seeing the beginning of the end for the Montreal Alouettes in terms of their golden generation, their golden era?
I just hope the head coach didn't unpack, because you know what? Hopefully the U-Haul van's still in the driveway, because I can't see him lasting. I'll be surprised if he's around by the end of August.
It's a changing of the guards, and Trestman's gone, new coach in, Calvillo is getting long in the tooth. There's other players. There's been some departures. I think it's good for the CFL. They have been the dominant force in the East and a heck of a franchise. So you don't want to see them suffer, but at the same time, it's nice to see some other teams step up as long as they're competitive. And I think the West is quite a bit more competitive.
Well, the West has always been strong. And like I said,
not a lot of
Montreal's
discipline in
only
Montreal
1-3, and they're not out of the first place just yet. They're 2-2 behind the Toronto Argonauts. Speaking of which, we'll get to that because Ricky Ray had a great performance passing Danny McManus on the all-time passing list. However, he got hurt in the process in the game where he hurt his left knee. You could hear him mouthing that it popped when he was talking to the trainers on the sideline. If he's out for a lengthy period of time, they haven't given a timetable yet. They've been very cognizant, the Argos have been, in terms of saying, he's out for this amount. But can we see them in serious jeopardy if Ricky Ray is not behind center either next week or the next few weeks?
Well, if you look at every team in the CFL, maybe except for Calgary, nobody really has a solid backup quarterback. If Saskatchewan lost Durant,
Drew
Willie, are you killing me? You know, and then BC, they lose. You know, I think Toronto is in big trouble if they lose Ricky for any length of time.
Maybe Toronto could look at trading somebody out of Edmonton to bring in. No, Edmonton doesn't have a quarterback, so.
They have Mike Riley.
Yeah.
I think he's decent.
Got to get my shots in at the Eskimos while we can. Yeah.
Hey, well, you can't. You know what? Who's been taking great shots over the last few weeks, and that's Phil Mickelson. The collapse that he suffered through at the U.S. Open in the final round, and the way he came back, changed his game, went to the Scottish Open, won the Scottish Open, went to the British Open, Muirfield, and won that, being 5 strokes back heading into the final round. How impressive was that victory, especially at a course like Muirfield, which baffled a lot of the greats, Tiger Woods being a fine example of how he just seemed to collapse late in the rounds.
I would have to say it's one of the greatest 4th round in a major ever. I mean, I listened to PGA Golf coming home as much as that excited the family in the vehicle from North Battleford from baseball, but I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was following on the radio and on the phone, and then got to watch the highlights after. But this stretch, the back 9, I mean, the shot on 17 and the shot on 18, I mean, he's a foot from going in the bunker and he rolls it up. I mean, the other one, 300-some yard fairway wood, and his putter. I mean, his short game has been strong, but his putter's let him down. But he didn't even have a driver in the bag for the 4 days and come back. I was honestly hoping for Lee Westwood, but I was happy to see Phil Mickelson, another lefty, win the major.
So many times at British Open, it's the guys that going into that final round, they lose it, and they lose the tournament. You've seen it time and time again at that course, and wherever links they're on in England. But you saw this year that actually Phil went out and won it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the fact that people lost and then gradually somebody moved up to the top. No, Phil just went out and beat everybody. He was 6 under. He was on a tear. And the links course, they were saying that it doesn't fit Phil. All he did was win 2 tournaments out there in 2 weeks. That's
and I think the Scottish Open played a big part in that, did it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Gained
his confidence, yeah.
Maybe there's hope for us, Bucky, that our game can get better as we get older. Because, I mean, you look at his age versus some of those young guns out there, and like you're saying, he's playing his best golf of his career. So that's awesome.
And his fairway shots were like hitting on a parking lot. You know, he puts it down the fairway, it bounces and rolls, and he eventually ends up on the green. I don't know how you can really tell the fairway from the green, but anyway, he's on the green and he's putting.
Adam Scott put himself in contention again, which was good to see after the collapse that he had. Like you mentioned, he fell back last year, but he had to lead with 6 or 7 holes again, and then his putter fell apart. Yeah. So maybe he's happy to get rid of that belly putter and go back to another putter, but who knows?
The end of belly putters and
belly
all that
putters.
together. That's another discussion for another time. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we got Over Under next.